Hello, my name's Kat and welcome to my channel. If you're new around here, I make videos about anything and everything from vlogs of my daily life to running a company and being a mother of 3 children. I'd love it if you subscribed and leave me a comment to let me know what you thought about the video. In today's video, I am going to be talking about some of the books I've read in the last 6 months. It doesn't feel like it should be an achievement, but it actually is an achievement that I've read more than one book in a year. I don't know why, but something about motherhood and social media makes it feel impossible to read a book. So let's get started. So the first books I'm going to talk about are the ones I read last summer. I put out a plea on Twitter asking for your book recommendations. I bought, I think, 4 books and I've managed to read 2 of them, which I'm counting as a win. First up was The Power by Naomi Alderman, and I could not put this book down. So loads of you recommended it and you just said it was really compelling and I wouldn't want to stop reading, and that was the absolute truth. It was a really nice book to get myself back into compulsive reading, the kind of reading where you don't want to stop and put your book down. And yeah, this certainly ticked the boxes. It's an interesting book about, I don't want to give too much away, but essentially the women in the book find they have kind of a superpower, and it's an exploration about how society changes once women become the stronger sex. And I didn't see the end coming, which I loved. And it was just really fascinating. It's told from the point of view of 4 different characters. So 4 people from different parts of the world who all connect at some point or another in different ways. And it was their story as this new power emerges. And I loved it. It was so good. I can see why guys wouldn't like it so much because it's probably uncomfortable reading for them. But I thought it was just brilliant. I highly recommend this book. Could not put it down. And yeah, I literally, when anyone asks for book recommendations, this is the first one I've been putting since last summer because yes. So next up, while we were camping, I read The Cows by Dawn Porter. It's a hardback. It's been a while since I've been buying hardbacks. But loads of you said that this was really good and compelling and I should definitely give it a go. And I enjoyed it very much. Again, the story is from the point of view of several different women whose lives cross paths. One of them is a blogger, one of them is bereaved, and I just really enjoyed the way that the story interacted. Now, some of the situations are a little far-fetched, to say the least. It's a really nice exploration of women who aren't living up to the breeding stereotype, you know, the woman who is going to stay at home and create a lovely family. These women certainly aren't living up to that, and there's a lot of discussion around being childless and what that means and female sexuality, but not in a creepy way. Anyway, I loved it. Oh, wrong way around. I loved it, and yeah, I do recommend it. I think you will enjoy this. It's a good holiday book because you just sink into it. It's a nice story to read over the course of a few days, sat in the sun, lolloping around. Definitely enjoyed this one. Sorry about the changing light levels. The sun is coming in and out, and yeah, annoyingly, it reflects really beautifully into the room. But when the clouds are across, it's like this. And when the sun comes out, it looks like this. Sorry about that. Next, I picked up a Jewell book. Now, it has been ages since I've read Jewell. I bought her first novel, Ralph's Party, when it came out back in the 90s. There was a review on the Late Review programme and it sounded really compelling, and I was getting through so many books at that time in my life, and I read it and loved it. It was just such a delightful book, and all of her books I found have been really enjoyable. She seems to have moved away from that kind of young woman's lifestyle book in recent years, and I've missed out maybe 4 or 5 books since I last caught up with her. And I have to say, I Found You, it's probably best described as sort of suspense or a light thriller. So at the beginning of the book, the main character, a woman who maybe hasn't got the most straightforward of lives, finds a man on the beach who has lost his memory. And the book is set in the present day around her finding him and in the past, which in some way relates to him, but you're left wondering which of the characters he actually is. It's a really nice way for a story to unfold. I actually quite like books where the past and the present are mixed into each other, because I feel like the story opens itself up to you as you go along. I loved reading this, and the ending is definitely different. It's not quite what I expected, or maybe not even what I hoped for. But Lisa Jewell, her writing is exceptional, and I still love it. After this, I went and picked up her previous novel, The Girls, which equally had a lot of mystery, and I think I actually enjoyed The Girls maybe even more than I enjoyed I Found You, but I couldn't find where I've left the book. So I Found You and The Girls are both in here. And the last novel I'm sharing with you today is actually coming out in 2 weeks. I very luckily got an advance copy of Let Me Lie by Claire McIntosh, because I'm interviewing Claire on the podcast. So you can actually hear this the week the novel comes out, as discussing her path from the police through blogging and freelance journalism into being a published author. And not just any published author, but a crazy big Sunday Times best-selling author. She's done so much. You're going to love the podcast, but the book, oh my days. So her first 2 books have been thrillers, and this one is also a thriller. It is the story of a woman who's bereaved after her 2 parents have committed suicide separately, and she then starts to question whether it was suicide or not. Now, I don't want to give you any spoilers about the plot, because it is such a good book, and Claire is known for her twists. Her first book was an idea that came from thinking about a twist, and this one I feel is twistier than the last. It is twistier. There were times when I could anticipate where the story was going, and I feel like that was there to make me feel like I was smart, because all along Claire was weaving in different turns of the story that you couldn't necessarily predict. So it was, from that point of view, really fun to read, because there were so many different options. It like really ignited your brain in like wondering where this was going, and maybe whether one scenario was true or another scenario. And when you start to see the path of the story, you question what you've read before. So from that point of view, I really enjoyed it. But the characterization in this book was glorious. There were characters who I felt utterly meh about, and I feel like they were there for you to feel meh about. But then there were other characters like Murray, who's one of the main characters, who's a retired police officer who has gone back to work as a civilian in the police. He and his wife, their story throughout the book is incredibly compelling, and something that I really enjoyed reading and delving deeper into. And I think Claire handled it really beautifully. She gave them the space that they needed as characters to live and breathe, which I love in a book. I really, really hate it when everything is laid out for you, or people are overanalyzed, whereas I feel like their story in particular, it allowed you to just experience them without any kind of comment being put on top. So if you are looking for a seriously gripping read that is going to make your heart squeeze a little bit and push you in every different direction, Let Me Lie is top of my list. I was actually really gutted when I finished this, because I wanted to keep picking it up and going back to the story and those characters, which I think is a really good sign of having had a good time with the book. So I'm definitely rereading this before I pass it on to somebody else. Okay, so those are the novels that I've been reading over the last 6 months, but I've also got a stack of other books which I think you're going to love. First up is Things Are What You Make of Them, Life Advice for Creatives by Adam J. Kurtz. I love his work. His essays on Design Sponge are phenomenal. His art is beautiful, and he is a great person. So I was really excited to get this book. Inside you'll see there are these wonderful handwritten notes which you can actually tear out and stick up if it's something that you need to remind yourself. But it's just a really level-headed look at different aspects of creativity and creative work. And it's something that I really enjoy picking up and dipping into when I am maybe blocked or stuck or in need of some outside inspiration. I flick through and find something which makes me think. So get this. It's also wildly beautiful. So why wouldn't you have it? The other book that I've been picking up and driving inspiration from is Make It Now by Anthony Burrell. Now, you can't see above me, but there's an Anthony Burrell print in my office just looking down on me. I've interviewed him for the podcast and I love his attitude. And this book is again another book about creativity and making, and it's stunning. It's tactile. It smells good because we all know that book smells are the best. And it's just really nice to get his advice and perspective in book form. So again, when I'm feeling stuck, these two books actually sit on my desk and I will pick them up and find something to interest me, to make me think differently. And I just love them. They are perfect desk buddies, in my opinion, and I think you'll enjoy them too. Next is A Glorious Freedom by Lisa Congdon, and this is so beautifully illustrated. Everything about this book is stunning. It gives you stories of women who made their careers and their lives in later life, so 40 plus. And as somebody who's only a few years off 40, I'm really enjoying the inspiration from this. It's something that I talk about quite a lot on Twitter, that you don't have to have all of your success in your 20s. It's fine to come to things later. I was in my 30s before I really started to understand what I wanted my business to be. And the interviews in this book are so telling. So each woman is almost giving you different advice, telling you how things worked for her at her time of life. And it's accompanied by Lisa's beautiful art and portraits, and another one that you can just pick up and dip in and out of. So if you bought Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls for your children or for children that you know, this is the equivalent book to buy for the women in your life so that we can give them courage. I think it was Jane Toft. Yes, it was Jane Toft who tweeted me the other day that you don't have to be in a rush to do everything. She co-launched Molly Makes magazine when she was 50, and it's fine to achieve things later in life. In fact, it's perfectly normal. So this book, I feel like, is the companion manual to achieving things and being great in your later years. I mean, as if 40 is late, right? I mean, that's said by somebody who's nearly 40. Yeah, I now understand what they all said when they kept saying 40 is not old and I was in my 20s. It's not old. You get here very quickly. Anyway, buy the book. You may have seen The Little Black Book by Ortega Uagba all over Instagram, and that's because the cover is perfect. It is so well designed, so simple, and the perfect shade of pink to put into your flat lay. But inside is a beautifully simple tome of advice to people in the creative industries. And I feel like it's not just for people in the creative industries, but it's relevant to all of us who work, every single person out there working. This is useful information. And this is something I would give to my younger friends because Actually, these are lessons that took me a long time to learn in many cases, and just having them right there in a book is really handy. What I love about this is, unlike a lot of other maybe business books or advice books, there's not a huge amount of Ortega in there. She leaves her own personal story out of it, but also it cuts through the noise of those books. Like they're hugely wordy, they're often very thick. You can see this is just a little A5 book that you can slip. Is it A5? No, A6 book that you could slip into your bag, that you can pick up, and it has short chapters which get straight to the point. There is no beating around the bush. There is no long and wordy explanations. There is no backstory that maybe doesn't apply to you. This is just good, solid business advice for anybody who needs it. Simple. And finally, I'm halfway through this book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. On page 2 of this book, it said, you know, as you're reading this, you probably are feeling a bit like you want to check your phone. That's fine. Check your phone. Put the book down and come back to it. So I put the book down and checked my phone and maybe didn't come back for 4 hours. And I mean, that's an indictment of not only how addicted I am to my phone, but also how easily distracted I am, because I did wander off and do a bunch of other things. This book really lays it bare about all of the different addictions that we have going on, what the possible outcomes for those are, and it gives you the tools that you need to make your relationship with your phone a little bit less intense. So it has influenced me. The other day I took a train ride and read a book in both directions. It was actually the Claire Mackintosh book. I didn't put my headphones on. I experienced the world around me, and it was nice. It was really nice. I got in the car the other day as a passenger and didn't take my phone out and check Twitter. And that is a huge change for me, because ordinarily when I have any downtime, the first thing I do is check my phone. I love my phone. My phone is currently not far from me. It's right next to me. Even though I don't need it, it is there just in case. So I do think this is a really valuable book for anyone who's like me, who's incredibly tied to their phone, who isn't really thinking about their phone use, but is spending a huge amount of time on it. I mean, I can spend an hour on my phone before I've even got out of bed to do a wee in the morning. Too much information? Yes, I'm halfway through and I'm making changes, and I'm really grateful to Catherine Price, who wrote this, for helping me make these changes through the book. She's also going to be on the podcast. A lot of these books are by people who've been on the podcast, and that's because I very luckily get to interview interesting and creative people. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to hear interviews with Anthony, Ortega, Catherine, and Lisa, and Claire, all of them have been on the podcast or are on the podcast in the coming weeks. I'm very lucky that I get to interview these incredibly creative people. If you have book recommendations, I'm reading again. Please put them in the comment box below. I want to know what you've been reading and loving, because I am back in the book market. Oh, it sounds so ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure there has been months when I haven't read a book. If you enjoyed the video, please give it the thumbs up. Let me know what you thought. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because it just makes my heart happy, and I've got interesting videos coming up and you will get to hear about them first if you're a subscriber. That is everything. You can find me and some of my other videos on the next screen, and until then, I'm going to say goodbye.